I'm Matt.
I'm Kerry.
We are the Stagmer brothers of Baltimore Knife and Sword. We're going to be building some of your favorite weapons, and some weapons that you've never seen before.
This is Man-at-Arms, Reforged.
In the new movies, Wonder Woman possesses shields and weaponry from the Greek era, which means they were most likely made out of bronze. But we Man-at-Arms like to make things indestructible. So Ilya's going to take us on a journey of how to create one of these shields by hand out of steel, all in one piece.
Using the CNC plasma cutter, I cut out a 25-inch circle from 4130 chromoly steel. Before Ilya has to handle the shield, Bill's going to take it to the Bader sanders and remove the burrs. Ilya begins raising this shield rather than dishing it. One of the main reasons is that dishing thins the material. Because he's going to create a fair amount of form, we want this shield to be as thick as possible. So he begins a raising process, working under his armoring forge. He'll be able to do all this work hot, thickening the material as he goes. Later, he'll begin to planish and create a smoother surface before he has to go to his final form.
So here I have some modeling compound that I'm going to use to create the buckles and the shield strap supports that'll attach the straps to the inside of Wonder Woman's shield. I'm going to use some modeling tools here with some fine points and some good curvature for doing detail. Now this type of clay requires baking in a kiln in order to harden it. And once it's been hardened, I can go back in and I can finish it up even a little bit more.
Using a broad, flat planishing hammer, Ilya begins to take out the highs and lows from the deep hammering into the shield.
Now, he's got to work backwards and start adding some texture. It's got to match the one in the movie, and that one's far from smooth.
I've created this texturing surface on my planishing hammer. As I'm doing the final forming on the shield, the texture is going to be embedded in the surface of the shield.
I'm making a two-part resin mold for the belt buckle and for the belt that Rick has carved. So we're about to pour the molds material. I've mixed the two parts together. It's a equal part hardener and resin, and we'll pour it in, and then in about 24 hours we'll cut it open and pour some waxes in it and detail the waxes.
So what we're now doing is adding a crackle finish to the center of the shield. I'm assisting Ilya by holding it on a mandrel as he uses a hammer and chisel to strike in our design. In the movie, it has a very scaled up, cracked looking surface to it. Maybe it happened when Doomsday hit the center of the shield and it heated up and then cooled down real quick. Maybe that's happened many different times over the years, but we're trying to mimic that surface. I think it's looking pretty good. We're just gonna keep going until we get this whole inside done, and then Ilya will be able to move on to the other details.
The next step on Wonder Woman's shield is to roll the edges. What I have to do is measure the shield. I already have a small divot that indicates the original center of the shield. I take my compass and draw a chalk line. On armor, in any analogous work, a straight, finely rolled edge either makes or breaks the piece. So I have to be very patient and very careful. Even with a preliminary roll, the shield became rigid, so it doesn't wobble all over the place like a piece of paper. It is very rigid at the moment because the flute, which is the preliminary roll, contains the entire wave of distortion that would go along the shield when you move it around and traps it. See, it doesn't move. Before the edge on the shield is completely rolled, it is always nice to tuck in a little bit of wire right here in the gap. The wire allows the edge to be rounder than a completely flattened one and guides your rolled edge right into the perfect form. Second thing is, it's always nice to have a little bit extra material right here so that I can manipulate the shield even after the edge is rolled without fear of squishing it.
Now that the mold compound is fully set up, Lauren will be able to remove it from its frame, cut down to the master, extract that section, and then we'll be able to shoot wax into the cavity.
So I've done a slight zigzag to the cut at first so that it has a place to lock into. A little powder in there.
After the surface is planished in texture and the edge is rolled, it's time to introduce the flutes. Flutes are crinkles in the material that are introduced in an organized manner. In our case, they're concentric circles. As you can plainly see, I already started introducing some of the flutes, but I still have quite a bit more to go. I have to complete this larger flute and introduce smaller ones that in the actual shield you see in the movie are more of a suggestion of a flute rather than an actual thing. Remember, what they do, they introduce axes of rigidity. And across those axes, it becomes very hard to bend the piece. They break up the shock wave that a piece experiences when it is being struck, and consequently improve the overall structure of the piece.
Now that we have all the wax buckles sprued, it's time to mix some investment, pour it in the mold, and then put it in the kiln to harden. We're almost ready to cast.
Right now what we're doing, we're refining the fake rivets on the shield. In fact, the prop you see in the movie, the rivets are not real, they're fake. From the outside, they're experienced as divots, so they're concave, and on the inside, they're convex. So this is what we're doing. I already set my basic dimple shape in there, but I have to come in with a rounded chisel, crescent chisel, to refine the border going from the inside out into the flat of the anvil.
So this is one we've done. You can see how crisp it is. This is one we haven't done with the chisel yet. You can see how much nicer it is after we do the chiseling. Now that all 4 flasks have sat in the kiln overnight and baked to the proper temperature, and our molten bronze is ready to go, it's time to do some casting. Kerry removes the crucible from the furnace and then goes straight to our casting machine, pours it into the investment. Now that the investment has cooled down, it's time to move to the quench. Lauren places the cooled flask into the water. It bubbles up and reveals that our parts have casted perfectly.
So the next step is one of our major points in the shield, and that's adding the eagle on the center of the shield. Now in the movie, we have only seen some subtle hints of the eagle on the inside of the shield. It just barely shows up when the shield glows. When it cools back down, you can't really see it. So we're not gonna worry about doing some really deep relief. We're just gonna do some low relief to give it the subtle suggestion of the eagle. Ilya's drawn the design on the inside with some chalk, and we're gonna chisel into a lead block, which is gonna create that relief. I'm just gonna be here as support, holding it as Ilya does all the work, just like always.
Now that our bronze buckles have been cast successfully, it's time to move on to polishing. Since Rick did all the original sculpting, we figured he should have the honor. He's gonna first Scotch Brite, then buff. They're ready to be mounted.
At this point, I'm almost done with the lettering around the rim of the shield, which are done very much like the eagle, except they require a slightly finer level of detail, as the letters are so small. So to that end, I move to the vise and place my lead block vertically, and the edges are beveled out. So this distance is the same as this, allowing for the letters to have some resistance as I drive them in, embossing with a chisel.
After roughing out the letters into a lead block, we now have to move to a steel mandrel and crisp everything up. This will give us a nice flat surface instead of rounded letters.
Ilya is now locating where the holes will have to be to hold the straps. He's going to use a spring set or a punch to locate for the drill, take it out to the drill press, and drill through these holes.
The shield is now ready for heat treating. What I did, I created a small frame to the back which captures it, kind of like a jewel, as it goes into the kiln, where it will heat up to approximately 1500 degrees and then go into the water tank right here. After that, I will still have to temper it.
Now that our shield is just about done, we have the leather straps riveted in place. The final step is for Kerry to gold leaf our outside ring and then to move on to the lettering. We're almost done. I think in this build, Ilya's really demonstrated that you don't need a whole lot of fancy tools to make a beautiful round shield. He added a lot of details and did a lot of hard work to make this one happen. I think it turned out fantastic, and I can't wait to test it in the demos.
Click here to subscribe or click here to watch more episodes. Thanks for watching Man-at-Arms Reforged. We need to know what you want the guys to build, so tell us in the comments below what weapons you want to see next.